Yet in book one, we don't really actually see Odysseus at all. And so my question is like, why? Like if Odysseus is the focal point, why don't we start with Odysseus? Hello, and welcome to Winnow, a couple's close reading of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm Owen Gemmer.
I'm Isabella Gemmer. We are married, and we love to talk about books together.
In this podcast, we are working our way book by book through the entirety of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. This particular episode is our first official episode about the Odyssey, covering book one.
This is it. We got to bring our A game. I am pumped for this, guys.
Yes. So last week, we had our friend Kyle Prue, internet sensation, on to talk about sort of Odysseus in general, in the first kind of 10 lines of the Odyssey, but now we're diving more fully into just a good close reading of the text, and I think we should just dive right in. We'll talk as we go.
Yeah, we'll talk as we go. So we are going to shake up, not the order of our episodes, but we're going to do things just a tiny bit differently in the Odyssey. We are going to do a summary that is just more kind of off the cuff. We're going to give one of us, we'll go back and forth, 60 seconds to summarize what they remember from that book.
Just like a speed summary.
A speed summary. The Odyssey has, the books are shorter, like each chapter is shorter. And I would say that less happens sort of logistically. Like in the Iliad, it was always like, so-and-so's over here. They killed this person. So-and-so ran over here. And it was just there's a lot of actual action, to keep account of. But in the Odyssey, it's much more just one main thing happened.
Yeah. And so the person who doesn't do the summary, again, this will alternate, will then ask sort of an opening question that will then guide the rest of our discussion. Yes. We're trying to model this on our undergraduate education from St. John's, where the opening question is sort of the king that just sort of guides everything and sort of flows from there. Mm-hmm. So we have decided for book one that I will ask the opening question, which means you have the summary.
We'll do the summary.
I don't have my phone to set a timer.
Oh, no. I will go get it. Okay. 60 seconds.
60 seconds on the clock. Ready, begin.
So Odysseus is on Calypso's island, but this isn't about Odysseus, really. It's about other things. The gods are talking about stuff. Agamemnon died. Athena sends Telemachus on a quest, where she goes as in disguise and sends Telemachus on a quest. Telemachus, Odysseus' son, and there's suitors all over Odysseus' home, and Penelope is depressed and weaving.
You have 30 seconds. Keep going.
Only 30 seconds?
Give me more detail.
Oh, more detail. The suitors are eating all of Odysseus' stuff, killing all the cattle. Telemachus is very frustrated. He's a young man, and he has no father. He has no direction. He needs to grow up. He needs to find himself. But how can he find himself until he knows who his father was? And he says some mean things to Penelope, but we'll talk about that. I think it's interesting. And Penelope is still depressed.
All right.
There we go.
You got into some of the themes.
Yes.
Whoa. My opening question for both of us that obviously I'm interested in figuring out as well. When we talked about the Iliad, right, the first word in the Greek of the Iliad is rage. And I think we did a great job of sort of discussing how rage is the center point and beginning and end of the book. It is actually the story of Achilles' rage. In this, the Odyssey, the first word in the Greek is man. And it's specifically about the polytropic man that we talked about with Kyle, Odysseus. And so it's very clear that Odysseus is the central point of this whole book.
Yeah.
Yet in book one, we don't really actually see Odysseus at all. And so my question is why? If Odysseus is the focal point, why don't we start with Odysseus? What is narratively happening to set everything up with the gods and Telemachus and the suitors and Penelope before we get to Odysseus?
Yeah. Actually, let's just explain. So when we're doing this style of conversation with an opening question, the opening question is kind of laid out there as kind of a guidepost to return to over and over again. But it's not intended for when Owen asks this opening question, the intent is not for me now to answer that question,
And then we're done.
hands down, and then the episode's over. It is a central point around which to like anchor the conversation. So Owen has asked a very good question, and hopefully it will lead us to talk about all of the various things that happen in this book, this chapter. But we don't go straight to like, okay, this is what I think the answer is. Basically, so what I would say to start to kind of discuss this question, we start with Telemachus as kind of like he kind of would be our main character, I think, for this book and for a few books to come.
Yeah.
I know that the opening line of the book, right, a man of many turnings, speak to me, muse. It definitely is about Odysseus. Like, that is definitely the intent. Like, the man that is being referred to is definitely Odysseus. But we are seeing Telemachus, or Telemachus, potato, potato. I will pronounce it both ways. I think that, like, we can see echoes of Odysseus's character in Telemachus, even though, like, Telemachus doesn't, he even has a moment where he questions, like, so they tell me Odysseus is my father. Like, I wouldn't know him from Adam, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to know who he is? Who am I? I've never met him. We don't even know if he's alive or dead. Like, Telemachus is in a really, like, he's in a really no man's land. He's in a liminal space. He's trying to transition from, like, boy to man. And there are moments where I think we can see echoes of Odysseus' character in him, even though he doesn't think he knows his father. Yeah.
And let's also clarify again, if you're unfamiliar with sort of this story, Telemachus at the beginning is, late teenager, like 17, 18, 19-ish years old. He was born right before Odysseus went off to the Trojan War, and the Trojan War itself took about 10 years, and Odysseus's journey home is another about 10 years. And so when Telemachus says, like, I don't know my father, like, he was alive, obviously. Like, Odysseus got to witness Telemachus's birth, but then went off to war very soon after. So Telemachus has no memory, and is kind of at this stage in his life where he should be sort of treated like an adult. But because his status kind of as the prince is kind of in question, he's kind of you're right, the liminal limbo kind of space he's in.
And because, it's also mentioned, like, Odysseus is kind of neither living nor dead, because it's not really confirmed that he died. And so there's a line, Telemachus talking to Athena in disguise. If he had died, it would not be this bad. If he had fallen with his friends at Troy or in his loved one's arms, when he had wounded the threats of war to end, the Greeks would then have built a tomb for him. He would have won fame for his son. But now the winds have seized him, and he is nameless and unknown. So the nameless and unknown is like, that's Odysseus' thing. Like, he's nobody, But I like that line because it emphasizes that, like, if Odysseus had died, that would have been great from Telemachus' point of view. That would have been great because then, I could move on as the heir of, all of Ithaca, right? Like, I could really come into my own. Or if we knew he was alive, then we could kind of at least hold things together. But, like, because they're in this place where they don't really know anything, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to read you a passage along this line that is directly tied in. So, right, Athena basically gives Telemachus a quest to, like, go talk to some of Odysseus's comrades who got home and see if they know of anything about Odysseus. And she's basically like, if you find out he's dead, then and you can come back home and deal with things. Or if you find out he's alive, then we can wait. And this is, so I should actually also clarify, I'm reading for this sort of reread for me, Alexander Pope's translation, which is from the 1700s. It is written in iambic pentameter, mostly in rhyming couplets. And there's some really banger couplets, but occasionally he actually does like triplets, 3 lines in a row. And there's this, I just think, brilliant turn of phrase to where Athena is basically telling Telemachus like what to do if he finds out, when he finds out this news. Then let revenge your daring mind employ, by fraud or force the suitor train destroy, and staring into manhood scorn the boy.
Oh, yeah, that is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This idea of like, you need to become a man. You need to like look to the future of you being in charge of this island, and you need to scorn sort of your past self as the boy. And in order to do that, you might have to deal with these suitors. Like, you need to get rid of them one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the equivalent in the Wilson translation, I'm pretty sure this is, when this is done, consider deeply how you might be able to kill the suitors in your halls, by tricks or openly. You must not stick to childhood. You are no longer just a little boy. But I thought the by tricks or openly was a nice little nod there.
By fraud or force.
Yeah, by fraud or force. Like hinting at, the Odyssean nature that might be within Telemachus. Like Athena urging him on, like she does with Odysseus.
Right.
To be like, you should take care of this in whatever way you see fit, right? Like, even if it's a little bit, dishonest, potentially.
Yeah, because I think that actually sets up well, right? At the very end of book 1, Telemachus goes to the suitors and is like, you guys can party tonight, but in the morning, I'm calling an assembly and I'm going to lay out the law. So his first attempts are going to be out in the open. He's going to try and deal with the suitors in public. And it's not too much of a spoiler to say it's not going to go super well. Yeah. We already see at the end of book 1, Antinous and the other suitors by extension are just like they have no respect for Telemachus. And so his sort of initial attempts to deal with them openly fall short, and especially in book 2 will continue to fall short. So
yeah. When he addresses the suitors at the end of book 1, like you were saying, he says to Eurymachus, "My father is not ever coming home. I do not listen now to any gossip or forecasts from the psychics from whom my mother invites to visit us." Basically, Telemachus is responding to one of the suitors, and he's saying, like, I don't take stock at any of the gossip about my father. He is not coming home. But then the following words are, those were his words, but in his mind, he knew she was a god, talking about Athena. I just like that little line. It's a nod again to his Odyssean nature.
He does lie to them. Yeah.
He is like, so our friend Kyle on our last episode, he, brought up Odysseus is potentially the first person in literature who is able to do something that's contrary to what he says. And I think that this is just a nice little hint about like Telemachus himself here is like, he is able to say, I guess you could say it's a lie. I mean, he is able to say, like, once he realizes the person he was talking to in disguise is actually Athena, because she has this like totally normal conversation with him, and then to leave, she like, I don't know, like she flies away.
Yeah.
Like in my head, she like McGonagall turns into a cat. She turns into an owl and like literally flies away, and then Telemachus goes, "Oh, that was a god." Yeah.
This is something we saw a lot in the Iliad, and we will continue to see, is the gods being sometimes in disguise completely, and other times, giving hints as to who they are. And I think it's very funny that, right, Athena has this entire backstory for Mentes, this person, when Telemachus greets her / in the form of Mentes, she explains who she is, and this super, super elaborate thing to like win Telemachus's trust. And then like at the very end, it's just like, it's me. And then that clicks in Telemachus's mind that like, oh, I should listen to this person's advice. Like he was maybe going to listen to it in general, but like that's the proof of like, oh yeah, I better follow this advice.
Pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that idea that Telemachus is able to know that he spoke to a god and not give that information to everybody he speaks to, right? He's able to, like Odysseus can, like separate the things that he knows, in his mind versus the things he wants, like the image he wants everyone else to see.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think another aspect of setting up Telemachus's character here that is both in some ways similar to and in some ways in contrast to Odysseus is his relationship to his guests.
Yes.
Because, right, so in Greek culture, generally, they had this sort of like law / custom / understanding referred to as xenia, related to the Greek word xenos, which, xenophobia, the fear of the other or of strangers. But in Greek culture, it was very much the opposite. Like any stranger you were supposed to treat with utter sort of respect and dignity, because they could be a god in disguise. And so the host had a lot of duties and obligations to a guest. We automatically know at the beginning that there is disorder to this in their household, because the suitors are all there not being good guests and just simply like partying and taking all of the household's wine and cattle and things like this. And they are sort of breaking the expectations of how guests should behave.
Yeah.
But when this stranger approaches in the middle of this sort of party that the suitors are throwing, there's a moment very early where Telemachus sort of like looks over at the door and like realizes there's this new person here, and he immediately runs over and is like super apologetic. Like, I'm so sorry to have left you waiting. Please come in, enjoy the feast, eat as much as you want. And when you're ready, then you can tell me who you are and why you're here. And, I have the honor of meeting you and all that. And so Telemachus is like the pinnacle of what a host should do. He is incredibly polite and patient and subservient to mentees / Athena. And so he is kind of the model of what a host should be, in a way that I think is really endearing. Like, I think we're meant to like immediately right off the bat, like respect Telemachus because of this.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like in contrast, so Telemachus is being a man of the house in how he's being a good host. But, right, there is also the imbalance, right? The suitors are taking it way too far, right? They are overstepping their bounds as guests.
Yes.
But it's also like the situation allows for that to happen because there is no like true master of the house. I feel like the whole situation is disordered because there is no like master of the house, keeper of the zoo situation, and again, that comes back to this problem of not only is Odysseus not there, but Odysseus is neither dead or alive, sort of. So the suitors don't fear his return because they don't really, I don't know if they really believe it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? They're not, they don't fear his return, and they are just, there is like there's a debaucherous element to it, where it's kind of this land of no rules, no order. And that kind of leads me to talk about Penelope, if you want to talk about Penelope real quick.
Sure. I have another point, but we can go thereafter. So
okay, well, because I want to talk about just Penelope in brief, because so like I do feel sympathy for her in the fact that like she has been left alone, right? Like it's clear that she does care for Odysseus, love him, etc., and she's like grief-stricken, right? But he has been gone a while, and she isn't moving on from it. I feel a couple things about it. One of them is that I think she could be overdoing it on purpose. That when we see her, she comes down when one of the like the poets or the singers in the house is singing this sad story about Odysseus and like the great things he did at Troy. And she's like, oh, I can't hear it. My heart is so stricken with grief. Please be silent. And then, I do think there could be an element of it where she is being over the top on purpose.
In order to delay and to stall the marriage that she knows, right? She knows if Odysseus is dead, she is sort of obligated to remarry. Yeah.
And like, I know she's just a woman in a time when women had no agency. Well, maybe even because we know that knowledge, like her delaying a remarriage to one of these suitors or to going back home to like her father and remarrying, in her original homeland, these things, by delaying it, like she is taking a lot of agency like into her own hands. And like, I kind of blame her for a lot of the chaos Like the chaos in Ithaca with the suitors and with Telemachus not knowing his place, like these things could be solved if she did remarry someone. I feel many things about Penelope. I do love her as a character, but I do think we should think, number one, maybe she's not as sad as she's acting. Number two, is she trying to regain agency in a situation where she has none? Oh, and three is if she would just remarry, I think it would solve a lot of problems. But she is very much like her husband.
Yes.
Stubborn.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I do think like there is also a way to read that as like super romantic, right? Like she will not give up hope that her husband is alive, and she will do everything in her power to sort of stay loyal to him despite like overwhelming evidence, not evidence, but like idea that like if it's been this long, he probably is dead. And like there is something, I think the romantic in me and I think in many readers is that like, no, this is perfect. Like she's the perfect match because she's unwilling to sort of bend to the suitors or to return home. Like she wants to stand, even if it's going to create this chaos, even if her son will suffer as a result of it. Like she is so dedicated to Odysseus. Yeah.
But it's more than just an emotional reaction, I think. I do think there's a part of her that knows that it's a major power play, you know? And so that's why it's like, it's really shocking and interesting when we see Telemachus tells her like, no, mother, the singers will sing the songs that they want to sing, the great stories about Odysseus. Like, I'm kind of in charge here also. He says like, Mom, be quiet. Also, I'm kind of in charge. Like, I do think it's kind of like it's the first interaction we get between them. So it is a little harsh to be the first thing we see. But I do think it is like his first step. Like, I don't think this is how he's been acting all along.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing like a really quick change in him after his conversation with Athena to being like, actually, I am in charge.
Yeah.
I am a man, you know, and he's just starting to. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the other question that comes to my mind, given right your observation about the disorder that comes especially from the knowledge of Odysseus being neither dead nor alive, it's interesting to me, and I have a question, why Athena doesn't solve that then, right? Like Athena knows the beginning of the book is the gods in council saying like, all right, it's probably time we let Odysseus get home.
Yeah.
And so Athena ostensibly could just go to Telemachus and say like, hey, your dad is alive. I know this. We gods have a plan to get him back home. So just like hold tight for a couple more weeks, months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then like, we'll make this plan. But she doesn't. She sends him on this quest to like learn more information. And so in many ways, it kind of is a little bit of a wild goose chase. Like Athena knows the information that Telemachus is going to get on this quest. And so it's like, so why does she make him go through all this effort?
Well, I will say that there are two things. One is that I imagine it's really valuable for Telemachus to go on a journey overseas to interact with new people and like visit a new land, because not like that is a taste of what Odysseus himself is doing, right? So you get Telemachus gets almost like a mini journey of Odysseus's, right? He gets to have that experience of going out into the world, leaving the city, encountering strange things, and then returning home. So you get that parallel between him and Odysseus. The other thing is that Telemachus is going to talk to Menelaus.
And Nestor, yeah.
And Nestor. And these are guys, as you know from the Iliad, who hung out with Odysseus back in the day. And so, like, I don't know if you've had the experience of, like, hanging out with people who knew your dad when your dad, before your dad had you. And, yeah, when you meet guys who knew your dad when your dad was in his 30s, and maybe even his 20s, like you get some lore drops. Like you get to know things about your dad that your dad would never tell you, right? So there is an element of, like getting to know your father through your father's friends that I also think is valuable.
Yeah. And there is, again, I think this like maybe it is somewhat manipulative on Athena, but like recognizing that if Telemachus is going to ultimately be kind of the man of the house, he needs to grow up a little bit and like he needs to prove himself. And like, right, this journey will get him practical information, but it will also just be like an opportunity to like be a leader of the crew that's going to go on this boat and to defy his mom in some ways. And so it does seem like, she's kind of setting him up to have a growth arc rather than just solving the problem for him.
Yeah. I wonder, did you find it interesting how, like, so we get the first 10 lines of this book, the proem, the invocation, but then it jumps into talk about the gods.
Yes.
Right? And we get dropped into this conversation between Zeus and Athena, and I had forgotten that like they're literally talking about Agamemnon.
Yeah.
And his unfortunate homecoming.
Yeah. So again, just to briefly summarize, the story of Agamemnon getting home was that on the way to Troy, they were stuck because the winds weren't in their favor. And so Agamemnon sacrificed their daughter Iphigenia to the gods to sort of appease the wind gods and get them sort of to Troy. And the entire time, Agamemnon's wife, Clytemnestra, was sort of incredibly bitter about this. And she ended up sort of with a man named Aegisthus, who also had beef with Agamemnon from their fathers or grandparents or something. And so when Odysseus gets home, they plot and they murder Agamemnon. There is a difference between, in the Odyssey, the gods here blame it mostly on Aegisthus for doing the murder, whereas in the Aeschylus play Agamemnon, it's mostly Clytemnestra who does it. But either way, Agamemnon is murdered. But then his son, Orestes, comes back home and avenges him by killing Aegisthus and Clytemnestra. Yeah,
I had just kind of, like, we've made some of the parallels clear between, like, Agamemnon's journey. You know, there's sort of foil stories, Agamemnon's return home versus Odysseus here in the Odyssey. But I had, like, totally forgotten that it's, like, explicitly mentioned, you know, in the beginning. Yeah, within, like, the first 50 lines. It, like, reminds you, like, it reminds you how this story could go really bad, right? It's like, it went really bad for Agamemnon, and, you know, it didn't go well for Aegisthus and Orestes. Like, it all ended badly, pretty much. And then it's like, oh, but we should also remember, like, Athena brings up Odysseus, because they're talking about Aegisthus, right? Aegisthus will not hear that good advice, but now his death has paid all debts, right? Like, the whole Agamemnon, you know, destruction cycle has been ended. And Athena talking to Zeus, Father, he did deserve to die. Bring death to all who act like him. But I am agonizing about Odysseus and his bad luck. For too long he has suffered with no friends. See all around him, see on every side.
Yeah, because I think the parallel here that Athena is recognizing is that, like, Odysseus's household is on the verge of entering into the same amount of disarray that Agamemnon's did. Like, there are external males who are trying to sort of infiltrate and take over the house from the sort of rightful ruler. In Aegisthus's case, he was successful in doing that, and that was bad from their perspective. And we don't want that same thing to happen to Odysseus. He needs the chance to restore order to his house in the way that Agamemnon was not.
That's what kind of spurs them into action, right? Or at least Athena. It's this conversation that, like, you know, they come up with a plan. It's like, okay, Athena, you go talk to him and tell him to go on the quest. And then after that, go talk to Odysseus, tell him to get on the road. And, like, Again, we have, like, kind of similar to the Iliad, like, the instigation of action is kind of coming from the gods in this. Like, none of this would have, like, kind of got its first little nudge or push if it wasn't for Athena. It was like,
and then later on, when Athena is laying out her plan to Telemachus, right about when she had the moment of, like, you need to sort of, you know, grow up and forget your childhood. Right after that, she brings the story back up to Telemachus. And I want to read this section because, again, in Pope's translation, there's bangers. Hast thou not heard how young Orestes fired with great revenge immortal praise acquired? His virgin sword Aegisthus' veins imbrued. The murderer fell, and blood attained for blood. O greatly blessed with every blooming grace, with equal steps the paths of glory trace. Join to that royal youth's your rival name, and shine eternal in the sphere of fame. So she's basically like, Orestes went and got revenge on the person who killed his father, and you might have to do the same. But in so doing, you can make a name for yourself, just like Orestes did. Like she's like, everybody in heaven, like all the gods love Orestes. We respect him for what he did. You could earn that same respect if you take care of the suitors.
Yeah. I'm also thinking though, like it's pretty risky from like Athena's perspective to to physically remove Telemachus from Ithaca. Like he's like the one, it feels like he's like the one thing that's like holding the suitors back from like, I don't know what they would do to Penelope, but like it feels like without him there, like removing him from the situation, like things could break out in like pure chaos. This quest she's sending him on must be really important to risk like things getting really chaotically bad.
Yeah.
So a theme that I would like people to pay attention to and track throughout the Odyssey as we continue to read is the interaction between like guest friendship and overstepping that boundary and eating too much food. So like it's going to come up time and time again where guest friendship is offered or not offered, and like food is going to be like basically eaten too much. Like it comes up all the time. And so, but seeing it the seeds of it with the suitors in this first book, and also like counterbalanced with like Athena, being a guest also in the house. But yeah, the theme starts with, the suitors like eating too much.
Yeah.
And the potential like consequences of that, they aren't here now, but they might be upon us,
Yeah. And so if you're new to this podcast with us, every episode we like to have at least one moment where we look at the original Greek of the text to see what we can bring out even beyond simply comparing English translations. And so you have transitioned well into our first Greek time of the Odyssey.
Yes. Greek time.
Yeah. So the suitors are described in many different ways, but overwhelmingly negative.
Yeah.
Would you like to read at least, we'll read in a couple English translations first, the line that we'll break down in the Greek. This is line 368 according to the Greek. Line numbering, again, if you have different translations, some translations like Latimore's stick exactly. So if it's line 368 in the Greek, it's line 368 in Latimore's. Others sort of get off kilter because they expand or contract lines. So Telemachus says to the suitors, "You suitors of my mother, overbearing in your rapacity, now let us dine and take our pleasure, and let there be no shouting, da-da-da." But it's this phrase, overbearing in your rapacity, that we were interested in looking at. The word that is translated by Lattimore as overbearing is a compound word that actually most people who are familiar with English should be able to break apart. It is huperbios. So the two parts, huper, which is the English root hyper. So anything hyper means in excess. We have a lot of, especially scientific words with hyper as a prefix. And then bios, like biology or anything like that related to life. So huperbios is sort of an excess of life.
Yeah.
That then sort of becomes this sense of like overbearingness or sort of like, I don't know, it's hard to describe.
Yeah, because you would think that too much life would be a good thing. Like the idea that everything is alive. I don't know. It sounds very positive, but it's hyper. So it's not in like a stasis, right? So it is an excess, too much of a good thing. Yeah. But like it's not a good thing when it's in excess, right? Like it gets back to that sense of like
a balance and
I think it's like debauchery.
Right. Because actually I should keep going with this. In this case, that's actually an adjective. It's sort of overbearing and then the word that it's describing, the noun that's describing, is hubris, hubris, which again, we've just directly taken that into English. But I think it's important to note that like when I hear hubris in sort of English today, the closest synonym I would give would be like arrogance. But it wasn't exactly that initially, at least according to some of the like Homeric Greek dictionaries. So let me actually just read it in a Greek dictionary that is specifically keyed towards like Homeric Greek, because again, words change over time. This is Cunliffe's Lexicon of the Homeric Dialect, and the dictionary entry for hubris is wanton disregard of decency or of the rights or feelings of others, an overbearing or dominating spirit or demeanor, a spirit of wanton aggression or violence, wantonness, violence, a manifestation of such spirit. And so there is an overwhelming or overbearing excess of this quality.
Yeah. It kind of, so the picture that's painted is like these suitors are just like in the house, only taking and not giving, right? And it's kind of like if there was a feast every day, you would get tired of having a feast every day.
Yeah.
Right. And the sense of like, it's sort of improper to feast every day.
Right.
Right.
That's where the excess of life, like life is a good thing, but when it's like too much of it, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think actually your use of debauchery is good, because that's that same thing of like, right, there's nothing wrong with like enjoying a good meal, but like if you enjoy a really good meal every day, like that verges on gluttony or these kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. But obviously, like the Odyssey was this is not, there are no like, Christian values like imbued into this. So like, but yet there is still, and also it's not Platonic either. Like Plato's virtues and such, like they hadn't really, they weren't like a huge thing yet either. But
not a huge thing, just non-existent.
Yeah. But still, I think that we get to see like the seeds of like these, like human beings know when things are out of balance.
Yeah.
Whatever words we use to describe, that. Yeah, I think we get that sense of like things are not in order in this house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the suitors are the cause of that. Like they are partying to excess. They are overstaying their welcome. They have like chosen to be this way. And I think that's what Telemachus is kind of accusing them of and urging them to stop. Because he's, I think at least initially, trying to sort of appeal to like, I guess a sense of decency that they don't have, but he hopes that they have.
He's like, eat and drink tonight because the food's already cooked. But tomorrow, you better get out of my house.
Yeah.
And then they're like, ha, ha, ha. So when's your dad coming back?
Yeah.
I am really excited to see Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson have like a very like, I can just see like Tom Holland being like, get out of my house.
Yeah.
Like, and then Robert Pattinson just being all slinky in the back, just being like, so when is your dad coming home? Like, I just like, I can just see it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Again, if you're unfamiliar, in the Christopher Nolan movie that is coming out, Robert Pattinson is playing Antinous, who is the kind of lead suitor, and Tom Holland is playing Telemachus. And it's going to be great casting choices. Yeah,
it's going to be great. So I have one more thing I would like to talk about.
Sure.
Which it goes back to Penelope. It's just, it's kind of my fanfic I would like to share. Because when Christopher Nolan announced he was doing the Odyssey, et cetera, and I was like, great. How is he going to mess with time? What are interesting ways to mess with time? And so my idea, so like if I was to do the Odyssey, basically, so Penelope is, in some ways, she's living the same day over and over again. When we think about, so she's weaving and unweaving. We kind of all know this story, even though it's not like hasn't been explicitly laid out yet in the Odyssey. She says that she'll marry a suitor, when she's finished weaving this thing, and so she will, but except she'll never finish weaving it because every night she unweaves it, right, and then reweaves it, and when you do repetitive actions day in and day out and you repeat the same thing over and over, sometimes you can like kind of lose track of time, and you can really you can lose track of the days. And I think Penelope is living this repetitive existence where the days are not really distinguishable from one another. And so I think it would be really cool for there to be some sort of, like, it would be really cool if Nolan, because I know he likes to mess with time, like used Penelope as like this like timeless center around which to tell the story. Like, I feel like there's some really cool ways that you could mess with people, like, and confuse, like, where are we in the story? Like, is this the middle? Is this the beginning? Is this the end? By using like Penelope's like repetitive actions to like displace people time wise in the story.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Or even a more direct kind of like Groundhog's Day style montage, even if it's not centered around the whole movie, but like showing Penelope. And I think also by extension, up until this point, Telemachus has probably been living similarly. Like, are the suitors going to leave today? Nope. Are the suitors going to leave? Oh, no, they're partying again.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
he is obviously changing at the beginning here because of Athena, but up until this point, yeah, like both of them, I think it would be interesting, to play with a Groundhog's Day time loopy. I like that as potential.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, it would make a very banger, like Nolan-esque montage.
Yeah.
Like you say, like at the beginning of Oppenheimer, there's that amazing montage of him like breaking glasses and like, going through school, and like, it's kind of like when like the superhero training montage, like it's kind of like that, but in Oppenheimer. Yeah. And the music is like awesome. Like I think it would lend itself really well to that.
Yeah, so maybe let's return to this opening question and try and tie all this together in thinking about narratively, like how these moments set up the beginning of the Odyssey, even sort of in the absence of Odysseus.
Yeah, to go back to the opening question, like the first book of the Odyssey kind of asks the question of like, these men have to return home. These men who've been gone for a long time. And the ones who didn't die during the war, right? Like they have to come home. But we see through Agamemnon, they're not successful in doing that.
Not all of them.
So we get to see just how bad the situation is at home, right? With Telemachus and the suitors and Penelope. And the book is kind of asking, how will the man of many ways, right? The man who can solve anything, like fix any problem, kind of, how will he like return home?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. And I think we've done well to point out the parallels between Telemachus and Odysseus as a father-son duo that will be reunited at the end, and to see how, like in many ways, as Odysseus comes to the end of his journey, we have to see Telemachus almost beginning his journey. That like there is this like one ends, the other begins. And so we're actually setting up like the questions that Telemachus is asking of himself that Odysseus will ultimately help him answer. Yeah, relating both to the order of the house and also to like who Telemachus is as a man. And I do think it also, again, sets up Athena's character as sort of like mother figure / helper, advice giver, counselor, all the things. And it sets up the suitors again as parallels to many of the monsters that we'll see and all these kinds of things. So that is where we will wrap it up. As we've hinted in book 2, Telemachus is calling this assembly and he's going to try and kick the suitors out. And so we will be back next week with an episode on book 2. If you would like to read ahead, I am recording an audiobook of Samuel Butler's translation of the Odyssey. And so we will have book 2 available for you to listen to. You're also welcome to read it on your own or just tune in because we'll summarize and we'll talk through everything as we did this week. We're excited to be on this journey with each other and with you as well.
Yes. And if you're wondering, what perchance do these people read when they're not reading the Odyssey? Well, we have a Patreon mini podcast called Chonkers that you can check out, link below. And if you want to support us on Patreon, that would be awesome.
And it might even connect some of the ideas that Bella talked about here with time loops and things like this to other books that she's been reading and thinking about a lot the last couple weeks.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah. If you want to see a lot of the thematic backstory, I'm always going on a thematic journey. That's the thing about me. Everything always connects. And so what you see is the tip of the iceberg on this podcast.
As applied to one of the greatest books of all time, the Odyssey of Homer.
Yeah. Every time I read this book, I just get so excited. Like the Odyssey is like far and away just like my favorite thing ever. So yeah, I'm having so much fun already, and I will continue to have so much fun. And until next time, we can have much more fun. Happy reading.
Happy reading.